Right, let's get this pantomime horse of a podcast underway. And anybody who's watching will see that once again we have six legs to our fabulous podcast, to our fabulous pantomime horse of a podcast. But Juliana, we were introduced to you by our good friend Nicole Alos, and a little shout out to her. But one of the things Kieran said to me was that both Nicole and Sue, who we also spoke to, was that they didn't know what a pantomime was, but they're based in the US. Now, you, by your accent, are not English or British, but you live in Manchester.
But I have a child, yeah. So at school, they have pantomime. So we had one now. It was Aladdin.
Brilliant.
Nice.
I know, because in Brazil, we don't have that. It's nothing. I don't even know. I wouldn't even know how to translate it.
I think it's
Excellent.
uniquely British. I think pantomimes are literally only us. Well, they're probably a bit of Australia and New Zealand, I imagine, the sort of old British colonies. But yeah, I think we are the only people stuck with it, and they are huge money-making machine every year. It's crazy how much money comes over the counter. I'd love to know.
Oh no, it's not.
Hey, oh yes, it is.
Oh no, it's not. It's behind you. Anyway, enough of that stuff. Let's talk about you, Juliana. We're here to talk about you. I've already mentioned you're not from the UK, so please would you be so kind as to share with our audience where you're from and a little bit of your background and your journey to this point in AI land. So over to you.
So I'm from Brazil, from the north east coast, in a city by the sea called Salvador. And my background actually is in oceanography. So I went to university and I majored in physics. So I started my career in data science. And so I spent a few years at uni working with research projects. I used MATLAB. And then when I graduated, I was invited to join a research project. It was like a few different universities in Brazil. And we have Navy and the oil and gas company called Petrobras. And we're creating, so this project was to create a ocean circulation model for the South Atlantic.
Okay.
And what I had to do, I had to validate the forecast output. So there were modeling, you have people doing all the machine learning. And I was, okay, let me see if this makes sense or not. So I started working back then, not creating the models, but validating. And AI for me, it was not AI. We knew about machine learning. After that, I moved to oil and gas industry. For many years, I was a navigator. And we also have a model. So we have certain position nodes in the ocean, and it would model where it was to create like a map, what we're doing offshore. And that has been, part, it wasn't nothing like extraordinary. It was just, part of the job. And then unfortunately, I had an injury, and then I had a career break of 2 years. But because of this injury, I couldn't go back to be a navigator anymore. I couldn't pass my medical. So I got into corporate. So I started working initially. It was a journey because I wasn't sure. I wasn't at that time. That's when I moved to Manchester, and I was just like, oh wow, I'm an oceanographer. There is no ocean here. I left off. I spent all these years as a navigator, and then I considered becoming a train conductor or a tram, like trying to do something like that. I considered becoming a crane operator because I could operate a crane. I was like. Was pretty much halfway through the crane operation certification.
As you are, yeah, just as you do. Yeah, I just happen to just do a bit of spare craning in my spare time.
It was just one more thing of my past daily job, because it was like, oh, we need someone to do it. We couldn't just helicopter someone down. We have to do it ourselves. So I always been like, that kind of mentality came with me to my current jobs or what I do currently. It's just like, don't wait, don't, go and get it. And when I started, and then I, ended up working with Power BI and reporting data, because my background was initially in data. And then all these AI craziness came about, and I was extremely overwhelmed. I was just like, why are people talking about something as if we just invented the wheel? We just learned how to make it here? For me, it wasn't anything new in terms of what it is. Of course, there are different types, generative AI, or, what I worked was mainly machine learning. But even though I felt really overwhelmed, so I shut down. I shut down in a way that I didn't want to know about it. I don't care. I just didn't read anything about it. And I had a mentor, he told me, you know that you're going to have to, because that's what the workplace nowadays, you're going to have to. And then I took my time. So I did a bit of learning on the ethical side, transparency, all the principles to ensure that we have ethical built AI. And that's what actually made me feel more interested about AI. And then I'm not an AI engineer. I don't code anymore. All right. I don't, back then I used to do MATLAB. I don't do Python. I felt like I don't want to go back doing that. It's not what I want. But I learned about vibe coding, right? And then I was like, oh wow, hang on a minute. Vibe code seems to be something very, very interesting. And that's something that I can look into and perhaps stop my, aversion to AI. And that was a really interesting process because in theory, you can vibe code anything. But then if you look from an ethical perspective, you have to think a lot about what you're doing, because we don't see the back end. Even if I export the code, right, I'm going to look at the code and I'm not going to have a clue what it is. Mm. So I started looking to, what kind of functions, or, what can, for example, pull out client data when I'm actually not intended to. So I started thinking about that, and I built a few solutions using Lovable, and then one of them was a Power BI accessibility check. I think I'm going all over the place.
Good.
So I currently work developing analytical solutions, including Power BI. So I'm a data engineer at UK, and I'm a speaker. So I speak a lot about accessibility, digital accessibility within Power BI and data visualizations. And then, a lot of people ask, oh, well, how can I check? How can I, see what I'm doing is right? Because people may not understand or don't have time to learn the accessibility framework. And then I found that was a big opportunity for vibe coding, because I had spent like 2 years or more learning WCAG and then translate what is actually applicable to Power BI, because Power BI, it's not like I'm developing a website or a software. And I wrote down all the checks that I wanted, all the checks that I thought this is the bare minimum we can do, considering the constraints of the application itself. And then I asked Copilot. I put in Copilot, based on the format I explained the constraint. I cannot see client data. I just want to see the metadata. Is it possible to create these accessibility checker using Lovable? And Copilot told me, yes, it is. Right. So I start vibe coding. I start explaining, and then I will get back to Copilot who will help me. That is specific application. I use Copilot a lot to help me understand what I'm doing. I had a few, at beginning, I was quite clumsy prompting. You don't understand, ideally you should break into smaller prompts and be careful with the memory of what you're doing. So I learned a lot in that process.
And interesting. Can I ask you a couple of questions about it? Because I know that the whole sort of vibe coding part, our CTO, I mean, we obviously use a bunch of the tools to shortcut massively any kind of coding task. But I love your point you made, is if you don't have any kind of knowledge of the underlying architecture, because you've just vibe coded some app, then how can you ever know if it's ethical and meets any other standards? In leading AI, we have the ISO 42001 standard, which is the AI standard, and it's for ethical AI. And so on our tools, each of our tools has an AI impact assessment. So a document that describes kind of what its risks are, what we're doing about those, where the data is, how we protect that, and all of those things. But I think, I had never really thought about the fact that if you're just vibe coding something, you just like whatever, no idea. I don't know how it works.
And you can actually export. I can ask a Lovable, can you export all my code? And you can look, right? But I don't understand that.
No, exactly. If you don't know that, and our CTO talks about the fact that in his world, there's so much you end up with. Well, I think they call it technical debt, because you've coded all this stuff, and when you're then going, actually, I want it to be blue, so that gets added, and you end up with like kind of so much code that half of it's not really doing anything anymore because you've added bits and overwritten bits. But unless you have any idea, which I don't, you're looking at this stuff going, I don't know.
But I think there is the bare minimum that we can do. I think I start looking into it, right? I also asked Copilot, and at the time I started using Claude.
Yeah.
Are there any kind of commands, functions that is used that may accidentally grab, unintentionally, grab the user's data? What is the limitations that I have? And then actually listed quite a few different things that I had to be worried about.
Yes.
And then I actually created a prompt, and there were quite of these functions were removed. So analytics, for example, what can I do in a way? I don't want to have all this tracking. I don't want any ads. So there are I have to be very conscious what are the risks. And then even if you don't know the language, you don't know coding, you ask Copilot what are the risks. And you have to be transparent. This application was developed using vibe coding, right? And I put I don't have my website, the Ease on Accessibility. It doesn't use. AI was used to build, but nothing inside uses AI. Everything, it was, I forgot the terminology. Everything's predefined. But initially I considered having AI, and I actually put a prompt for me. You're now using AI, everything that you're doing. So even that kind of warning, I would assume that my user doesn't know what it means.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that that person will understand the risks of using the application. So yes, there is a lot. I learned a lot in that regard. And then there was the She Builds. There was this program hackathon from Lovable. And I submitted an idea, which was something that I created as a newsletter a few years ago on STEM, on interview women in STEM, from different parts of the world. But the reason that I created the newsletter was because I volunteer at schools here in Manchester. And I went to a primary school, very small, in a low-income area, very needy school. And they told me, we don't have access. We don't know what's role models. We don't know, because I said, how come? Because there is so much happening. You go on LinkedIn, all these different groups. How come you never heard about it? So I always wanted to be able to create something. And initially I thought I'm going to have a book, but I didn't have the resource to create the book and print the book because I didn't want to sell. I wanted to distribute for free.
Right.
And then I was like, why I just don't create a digital platform? And I got into the She Builds, and it was a completely different approach that I had to vibe coding, because based on what I learned doing the other application, I structured my prompt in a different way. I used Claude and Claude Code at that time. And I could see how more efficient it is using the tokens, how it doesn't seem to forget what I want. Because I wanted, for example, I want it to be accessible, WCAG compliance, level AA. It is for children, intended for children to use, so all the safeguarding around that. So it was a very interesting process to go through those 48 hours vibe coding. And I think it's really, really nice to have these initiatives because, I already had vibe coded, but there were other women that they hadn't. And that opens up so much for your curiosity. You feel that you are more aligned with what everybody else is doing. And then I decided to put I have a blog, and I was like, this is an AI project. This is, you go through a product development from understanding the gap in the market to all the stages. I had people testing. And I think it is really good. I felt more empowered. I felt more confident on what I develop, and saying that yes, AI, I make some use of it. I don't think I'm perfect. I think there's a lot for me to learn. And I don't want to use it for everything, because I had some concerns around the use of AI still. But I think, if you are planning to use vibe coding or AI, think about the risks and the gap in knowledge that you have. How you're going to ensure that everything's done in a way that is ethical and your users will understand the risks.
Yeah. Can I pick up on a couple of things that you've just said, Juliana? The technology books for children piece that is on your LinkedIn profile. I'm really interested in that, and you've touched on it just a little bit, but please tell me more, because I think it's one of those things. I've got grandkids who are 6 and 3, and they, this is their world, and helping to teach them about technology in general, because obviously they're exposed to screen time. You'll have seen there's loads of stuff in the media and news about kids spending too much time on screens and blah blah blah. So talk to us a little bit more about your technology books for children stuff.
So I'm a trustee. So Technology Books for Children is a charity here in the UK. It was founded by Beverly Clark. And the idea is to have more resources. So if you go to the website, they recommend per age group, areas of interest. And it is self-funded. They don't have any major sponsor. And at the time, they were writing a book it was the Tech Career Code for Teenagers, and I was one of the collaborators for that book. So when the book launched in London, it was really nice. I'm an advocate, because I'm a STEM ambassador. Before that, I've been a STEM ambassador for many years. And I was invited because I introduced them to, because I'm speaking events, and I knew a few companies that sponsor events. So I got them a good partnership, and because I'm always an advocate, and they invited me to become a trustee. And I was really proud and honored to be able to support that charity, because it's something that I truly believe. I also have a son. He's 7. He loves his tablet. He loves playing with things that sometimes I'm worried but proud, because he does things that I don't understand how he managed to do it. And it's important, right? Because I grew up not understanding what technology, I didn't like it. I liked at the time old books. So my mom had really old encyclopedia, and I love it. My brother, he was into, he had this video game. He didn't finish. He had not finished high school. He could open the computer processor and change bits and bobs. And I didn't have a computer. I got to university. I didn't know what PDF was. People laughed because I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a computer. And I think I missed a lot. I ended up in this career in tech by accident. It wasn't my intention at all. And I see now that technology is more and more part of all the industries. Whatever you do, you will work with technology. And of course, if you know that it is the future, what are the possibilities that are there that you perhaps don't understand because you haven't met anyone? The roles are evolving very quickly. So what I work today, Power BI, it didn't exist when I was at university.
Yeah, indeed. And that is, things. Sorry, go on, Neil.
Oh, thanks, Ken. So one of the other things kind of linked to that is your stuff around using data to tell stories. And I was wondering what the best story you've ever told with data visualization was. Can you share? Can you think of something? I didn't prep you for that question. It's quite a big one.
There was something that was quite interesting. It wasn't client work. It was a course. So I did this training on data visualization. It was amazing. And we had a dummy data set to explore. And then, of course, I explored it was a world indicators like mortality rate and everything for the world. And there was a lot of noise, all of these. And, okay, let me filter to Latin America because, that's what I'm familiar with. And I saw that the mortality rate was like always decreasing. There was some spikes. And I was like, what are these like errors? Let me see what is the year. And I could actually match the year that there was a spike in the mortality. First, I did Haiti because there was a massive spike. And I was like, the year I remember in Brazil watching on the news, we sent aid to Haiti. I couldn't remember what it was. And it was a massive earthquake that they had there, right? And then there were smaller, but two other spikes. They're all related to other natural, like there were hurricane, rainfall.
Yeah.
And I found it was really interesting because sometimes you just think it's noise and we wiped out. And then you actually see that what are the stories behind those spikes, right? In terms of what happened to those countries. And how it marked in my own memory, right? I remember watching the news, seeing that there was, couldn't remember what it was, but I knew that there was happening. So it was really, for me, it was really interesting to uncover those events that happened to those countries in that specific time. Of course, for me, I run some statistical tests, but I cannot confirm. I am assuming that those events may have had some effect.
That's a good mathematician's language, isn't it? I cannot confirm. I suspect.
Yeah.
The data correlation.
Would lead me to believe.
Yes. Well, I did some that because even when you do a statistical test, there are so many perhaps involved that I could not confirm. So, but I found it interesting because I could link there was those events that happened on that time frame. And I really liked that exercise. I found it like it was just like I don't think I was supposed to do that in the course on the training, but it got really curious about the memories I had, and I really yes, it was not there was nice events that happened, of course no, but when you actually see facts, hopefully facts, but something that
related to real life.
It's people's lives, and so yeah, I really enjoy
it. Best kind of storytelling, making it real in that way is really good. You
Yeah.
said a thing which one of the areas we sort of think about quite a bit is you mentioned Power BI didn't exist when you were at uni, so that need for continual learning, lifelong learning has never been more important, I think, now. I heard a hilarious story of someone saying when they were teaching computer science as a degree subject, a 3-year degree program, he said, but by the end of the course, the things I taught at the beginning weren't relevant. He said, but now, by the end of the term, the things I was teaching are no longer relevant. So
there is like some foundation, right? So when I started coding when I was in university, I learned Fortran 77. I haven't worked with Fortran 77 ever. I did MATLAB, but I had an educational license because it was a research project at university. MATLAB licenses are quite expensive. When I went to the real world working, I didn't have any of those specific coding languages, but I could very quickly pick another coding language. So I had to do VBA. I did not even use Excel, but I could understand, open the syntax page and the code, the thought process behind it, I would understand, and I could fix and do some bits and bobs. So there are many transferable skills, and that's what, but we have to keep our minds open. There are transferable skills, but there is a level of effort we have to put into to keep up, because otherwise, you can fall behind, and if you don't keep up, that's when you may be I don't think AI it's gonna wipe out the jobs. I don't think we are at that level, but if you don't keep up, you are at risk at some point to not because AI will replace you, but perhaps someone else will have the right skills.
And that's the reality, isn't it? For most people in work, you've already got colleagues that are managing to do, if they're using AI well, they're going to be more productive than you, and eventually that's going to show, isn't it? And so I think I agree with you. I don't see the jobs apocalypse coming, frankly, soon. Who knows with AGI? If AGI actually does sort of get to the world, then maybe there's a different conversation. But at the moment, I think we're very much seeing where there's a clear role for humans, which is a good thing. I like it.
I like the idea of being the human in the loop, right? I think if you have AI systems, you have, how do we ensure that this is right? Help this is ethical. I think we have to be there and work with it. So be more productive, more efficient, but don't forget to be the human in the loop.
We talked to Sue Sue Belago, I think that's the correct pronunciation. Belagodu. And she was talking about designing, when you design AI in the workflow, you've got to be consciously designing in the points where humans need to check. Because, and I think this is really interesting because you see it everywhere, just giving the human the final output and saying AI can be wrong, make sure you check, isn't good enough, really. It's very difficult, isn't it? Because it's very persuasive.
It is.
You might be checking a figure, a number in a response that to actually check, you're going to have to dig through all the stuff. I think it's tough.
Something that I noted, because I remember testing several times an application, and then it was fine, and then I used another file to check, it was not fine, right?
Yeah.
All the ifs that about.
Yeah.
So that's why I always say, if you find any error and any issue, to reach out, and I need to, can you give me a screenshot, describe what the error is?
Yeah, exactly.
Because even when you code, I remember in Power BI once coding something to flag some inconsistencies. I had a very small data sample, right? And it was working with that data sample. When more real data start coming through, I start finding, oh, hang on a minute, it's missing. It's not right. The calculation is not complete. I have to add more statements into it to cover the new circumstances of the data that was coming through. So even if you are working, if you don't, you may forget. You may not have seen a specific case, and it may come through. So you have to constantly monitor, what's the output, even though that you already tested it. It's okay. Yeah. So there is that risk, even if you come to it, I think, yeah.
Can we talk about your work, your focus in accessibility? Because you've got, I love I looked up, and your tool, what is it, A11Y?
Yeah.
Which has been very successful. Lots of people using it, I hear, as a free tool that lives in your browser that can check Power BI reports and tell you how accessible they are.
Yeah.
In the conversation, I'd love to get your thoughts on is the world of AI. Every major kind of software provider now will have an AI overlay, and it's a sort of chat with your data style thing. Do they ever think about accessibility? Do you know? Have you looked?
So there are things happening. So for example, I have WordPress. Whenever I do any edit to WordPress, I have a pane with AI that helps. If I don't put alternative text, for example, it will generate. It does the checks on me. It flags if the contrast is not good. So I think AI, it can help a lot. What it takes is people to want to invest into it, because unfortunately people think that accessibility, oh yeah, it's nothing, it's just to make things, but we forget that you have people that, to be able to live their lives or work, they will rely on certain features. So I remember once I wanted to have an accessibility plugin website, and I had to pay for it. And I was like, I can't pay because this is my blog. And I was like, we are penalizing people who rely on these features because we created something that helped them, but we want to charge.
Interesting.
So that's why everything that I do on accessibility, I want to make sure that it's free, because I don't want that I don't want just privileged people to be able, all right, I can afford to pay, and then my user will be able to see it. So we should spend less time trying to do bad things with AI, right? Fake news, all those horrible deep. Do something that actually help humanity. AI's got massive potential in terms of accessibility. I've seen it working with WordPress, and I think we just have to be more aware, because I think there is a lack of awareness, and then people think that accessibility, oh no, it's just for website developers. But no, basic things, and for me it's quite personal, because when I had my injury, I ended up with nerve damage in both of my hands, and I have less dexterity, mobility, strength, so I have a motor disability on my hands. And when I got back to work, I was given a normal mouse that I couldn't use, right? And then for 2 years I was like feeling, oh, if I cannot do it, I'm going to lose my job, because it's part of the job. And then when I spoke to my line manager, she said, no, we have the Equality Act. We have to give you the means for you to do your job. And I bought I got these mouse, right? I just use my thumb. And the change that you have I could spend the entire day here explaining to you. You would be able to emphasize, but you would never fully comprehend how it changed your relationship with, I don't know, for me, it was using my mouse and computer, right? I recently got new glasses, and for the past year, I couldn't see, everything was blurry. And when I put these glasses on and I could see people's face, I was like, oh my, look at this.
Oh, on the Teams call.
Yeah, that's right.
Now looks, it's so clear. It's amazing. When you go through that, you just feel like, what is it now? When I take my glasses off, I struggle because everything is black blurry. So and when you create accessible experiences, you're going to improve usability for everybody. Because, so for example, sometimes you're viewing, I don't know, you're looking your mobile phone, so everything is small. If you design for accessibility, your font size is going to be larger by default. So you're going to have a better experience using your phone. If you have a good color contrast, it's going to be better if your user's screen settings too bright or too dim, right? So all those you're looking, can you imagine looking to a report, you're tired. At the end of the day, you worked all day, you have to make decisions, everything's overwhelming. So that improves usability, improves user experience. So don't think that it's just, oh yeah, I'm going to make it accessible. And it's funny because a lot of people used to tell me, oh, you're not very technical, are you? Because you just do design. And I was just like, so I actually stopped. Yeah, I'm not technical. But because I got tired of being told that, oh, you're not very technical, are you? But and then I actually start creating now open source tools to show the level of technicality you need to have to be able, for example, to do a color contrast check. So
and you've won some awards for that kind of thing, haven't you?
So for the PBIX A11Y, it has been nominated for an award, the Inclusive Award here in the UK now for 2026. So within 2 weeks that I launched, it was nominated. I have won a few awards individually. The latest one was the Northern Power Women Awards. I was on the Future list. But that's for my work overall, with digital accessibility and also as a STEM ambassador, working to bridge the gender gap in STEM, overall STEM and technology. So I've won these awards. You don't do that to getting awards. I think for me, community work, it is that invisible work you should do because it satisfies you and you see that you're helping your community. So it feels weird to have a recognition for something that I want to do because I want to help, right? But if it gives more visibility to the cause, that's when for me, okay, I'm going to use this platform to raise more awareness, to have opportunities to speak, interviews, and you talk about it. So that's what I've been, whenever I win an award, that's what I used to. But I'm a firm believer that community and outreach work should be kind of invisible. You don't need to, you're there helping.
Yeah, it's nice. I say on your accessibility side, I saw that you were talking about the challenges of red, amber, green, which is used so often and obviously so difficult for people with blind challenges. Have you? Interestingly, I get cross about it from an AI perspective because it's when we get clients sort of presenting spreadsheets to our tool, to Knowledge Flow, and they might have red, amber, green in the cells, and they're like, well, hasn't seen that. And you're like, well, we have OCR capabilities in Knowledge Flow. You could see that, but it's actually that would be very tricky for it to do well. It's like it's a kind of frustration from an AI perspective because it won't naturally see it. What do you do in its place though? What do you use instead of red, amber, green? Are there different colours that you should be using?
So so ideally, we should never use colour alone. So if there is a way to add an icon, texture, in Power BI, I cannot add texture, for example. It's not all the visuals that you can add a second way to differentiate elements other than the colour. But then there is a definition of accessible colours. So the accessible colours are colours that when they are together, they have enough contrast so you can see that there are different colors.
Right.
And then you assign a legend. So you say, you put a little square, this color equals good performance. This
Yeah.
one bad performance. So if you don't see as blue, if you don't see, you know the meaning. So you get the color and the meaning. Now, what is very difficult is having 3 colors that have enough contrast. For example, think about if I print these in grayscale.
Yeah.
Am I going to see the 3 different colors? It is very hard. I could not find 3 colors to replace rag that could be seen clearly as 3 distinct colors in grayscale. So I have that caveat. What I use nowadays is like a navy for good performance, a lighter blue for like a risk, or would be the amber, and orange I use for like bad performance. What would be the
okay.
Yeah, but if you print those colors in grayscale, it's you're going to see 2. The other
indeed,
very close.
I used to. That reminds me, many moons ago when I was consulting in program management and putting program management offices into businesses, and I used to do exactly, because it was the days really before color printers, they were very rare, and so I used to use a very light green, a medium amber, and a dark red, because then printed they did differentiate, but otherwise they don't look any different.
There is another catch, because the colors, they also have to have contrast against the background. So if you have a light background, the colors, if it's not text, your color contrast ratio should be your 3:1. So you're going to have to find 3 colors that together they all have 3.1 contrast ratio against the background.
And against each other.
Yeah. So that is the other level. And if it's text, if it's not shape, or if it's a text, the contrast ratio should be of at least 4.5:1. So increase your contrast ratio. So it's not, even if you try to do that, it's going to be failing accessibility because the color contrast ratio. So it is a difficult one. So whenever I can, I add this series on the chart. I add icons. If you have a line chart, you can use line styles. So you can have a solid line, a dash line. You can use different markers.
Right.
But there are some that you don't have that option, and that's why we have to be very, very sensible in that regard. And also, don't try to use 10 different colors in a chart, because that is going to cause another. Because how many colors you can distinguish? How many of them in a chart without struggling, right? How many?
Exactly.
How many gray? So we have to be mindful on how we select colors and how we use colors.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm mindful we've asked you lots of questions, Juliane. Sometimes I worry that these things always seem to turn into an interrogation. So apologies for blasting you questions, but you've got loads of really interesting stories. Have you got any questions for Kieran, right? Is there anything that we can answer for you? Any topics of interest to you that we're involved with?
Just want to know your honest opinion about, if you had looked my work, is there a way that I can improve it? Because I'm always looking to improve, whether it's design, whether it's something that I missed, whether you had experience or had this idea, because I can try to implement. So this is, I think, feedback for me is how I improve. And
cool. Well, there is a lady that we work with called Juliane, who is really big on the accessibility stuff. She worked in central government, the Department for Education, for a long time, other places as well. But accessibility is one of her big topics, and she berates me often for using things like capitalization in sentences when I shouldn't, and making sure that the fonts are right, and all of that good stuff. And I put her in touch with Nicole, because I thought they had quite a few things in common. So what I will do is I will put Julia in touch with you and your work, and she is our kind of go-to expert on that. So I will happily put her in touch. But that's an easy task that I would love to do. So happy to do that.
Well, thank you. That's lovely. And I don't know if I can say that, but if anyone is looking for charity to support, I am a volunteer, so I don't make any income of it, but please consider supporting Technology Books for Children, because they're doing amazing work, and it's all self-funded. So any support is very much appreciated.
Excellent. And we will definitely plug that and get that out to our network and try and find you some more support for that. Kieran, have you got any final questions for Juliana?
I was going to just share a story. When you opened and you said you're from Salvador, I went to Salvador once for about 4 hours because I was on a flight to Rio and it diverted. Somebody had a heart attack on board and it was a 747 and they diverted into Salvador. And there was a bit of I remember sitting next to this couple who were going to Salvador for their end trip, but their bags were in the hold, and because Salvador had never seen a 747 before, they had nothing to be able to open the door with, so they couldn't get the bags out. And this couple are sitting there, the door is open and the steps, and I keep thinking, if I was them, I might just run, because they were going to miss their connection by 24 hours and have to be like lose a whole day because of the diversion and the delay to arriving.
International flight, they will have to collect the luggage in Rio, go through customs, passport, and then recheck in the bags.
Right, there you go. So they had all that. They could have just done a runner and left their luggage behind, but they also couldn't fuel the plane.
Them to ship it.
So, yeah, you bring it. We're here. They couldn't fuel the plane, so we were there for quite some time because they didn't have the nozzle that fitted a 747, so they had to go and dig around in the shed or whatever and go find it. But it was
a really big funnel with a big.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we just got to make something. So that was my one visit to Salvador. So I didn't really see it very well. I saw it through an airplane window.
It's a nice place to visit. Definitely worth if you have the chance.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we'll add that to the tourist board for Salvador. We'll get a little plug for that. Brilliant. Well, Julia, thank you so much for spending the time with it. It's been a great fun talking to you. Really interesting, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. And I hope to speak to you again soon. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Nice
Goodbye
one.
now.
Thank you, Juliana. Keep in touch. Bye bye.